Hey, what's going on? Joe from Home Studio Corner. I was getting ready to do a mix for a client and thought, I need to show you my updated template. I did a video a while back on my mixing template, and it has changed. It's constantly evolving, which is what's kind of fun about it. You add some new things, then you save it as a new template. And actually, I'm going to do that today. A couple new things I want to add to my template as well and show you where I'm at with my mixing template. So let's dive in. So from the new, this is in Studio One, by the way, from the new song window, the song is called Alabama Love Song, which I love. I'm going to choose my template, my new one's called Mix Plus Folders, and you'll see what that means in just a second. If you're not familiar with folder tracks in Studio One, they are... most DAWs have had folder tracks, so it's not a new thing. Studio One has had them for a while as well, and I haven't used them a ton. But for this, mixing, especially when folks send me tracks to mix, it's super helpful. So as you can see, I've got folders set up for each of my main groups of tracks, and these folders are actually also corresponding to these buses in my mix window. So let me close. Let's see, I need to turn that down, making some changes to my template. And so these over here on the left correspond to those folders. So I've got, like I've always had for years, a drums bus, bass bus, electrics, acoustics, keys, vocals, background vocals. Those tend to be the categories of stuff that I mix, and so everything runs through one of those. You can always add more if you need them. And then to the right, these are my default effects that come with me in every session. So I found myself always setting up, for example, a slapback delay or a plate reverb in my sessions, and I realized, man, it'd be easier if it was just right there. So if I wanted to send my background vocals to a plate reverb, boom, it's right there waiting for me. I don't have to do anything to set it up. And these are all pretty low key effects, so they don't take up a lot of processing, just sitting there waiting for me. So real quickly, the the room reverb, which is kind of like a drum room sound, is this one. The plate reverb is actually just the room reverb set to a really funny shaped room with a super long tail. I use this all the time. Gives me a big ambient sound. Spring reverb is actually open air using a spring reverb impulse response that I bought from Presonus, the Convology. I mean, look at this. Those are all spring reverbs. It's insane. So that's cool. And then the analog delay is set up as a slapback delay on this channel. So 120 milliseconds, no feedback. Super simple slapback. The second one is a quarter note delay, and the third one is a half note delay using beat delay, which is just a different delay inside of Studio One, has a little bit of a stereo vibe to it. Everything else, you'll see there are plugins on these channels. These are not on. Well, technically the EQ is on, but it's not doing anything. So as soon as I reach up and grab a knob, it'll start working. The compressors are all off, and I've got different compressors on different groups. So I like this Neve-ish compressor on my drum, so I've got it there. On my bass, I like the LA2A, and then everything else has 1176 on it. These can obviously all be changed. They're not set up with any sort of a preset like settings. It's just the one that I like to use is there waiting for me, and I can quickly just say doink and let's go. Okay. The other place where I have plugins on my reverbs, I've got 3 fat channel plugins, and all they're doing, it's funny, I could probably change this to just a normal, actually let's do that, because these are actually kind of unnecessary. Let's change it to just a normal Pro EQ. And what I do is I just use a high pass filter to roll off everything below 200 hertz on these reverbs. Because one of the common problems that happens with reverb is you end up with, you send something to the reverb and then your whole mix sounds muddy. And you think it's the track, but it's actually the reverb that's muddy. So this way, the reverbs still sound warm and full and big, but they don't have a lot of that grossness down below 200. So I have those EQs in place always just in my default session. Not the same thing on the delays because a lot of those have built-in high and low pass in the setting itself, so I don't use that. On my mix bus, I have the same fat channel, only this one has like an SSL style compressor with the settings that I like because I tend to use the same sort of settings on my mix bus, and I can always just click that on when the time comes. But as it sits, there are no plugins on affecting the sound. They're just there waiting for me to use them because these are the kinds of plugins that I like to use. Another thing, this isn't really a template thing, but there are several plugins that I use all the time, so I added those to my favorite section. So I know if I just look over here on the top right, these are the plugins I end up using the most, so I can just grab them there, as opposed to having to look through, even though I don't have a lot of third-party plugins at all, Just the stock Studio One plugins, there's a bunch, and a lot of them I don't use very regularly, so I don't have them in my favorites. It just makes life a little bit easier. One thing I will add, this is something I've started doing lately, is this level meter plugin, putting it on my mix bus, on my post section, setting it to K20, because that's how I like to mix. I like to have the mix coming in around 0 where it's green, and then getting up into the yellow for most of the mix and getting into the red for the loudest parts. What's cool about this is I can make it as big as I want. I can click the little pin there to keep it open, so I can leave it open all the time while I open other plugins. Then I can shove it over here in the corner, and now that right-hand side of my window, of my screen, is my meter, and it just looks awesome. I have no audio here to show you that. You'll just have to trust me that the meter is there as well. It's the same thing as this meter, it's just really big, and I kind of like that because I got a 27-inch screen that leaves some room for that. So that's my template. Everything is set up like this. Now, just so you know, why the folder thing, let me show you real quick. Here's some tracks that I'm importing into a session to mix. Give me just a second while they copy in. Now, what happens is, well, let's wait for all these to update. Okay, now they've all imported in. And so the big part of what I do when I'm setting up a session is getting everything in the order that I want, getting it routed where I want, because remember, I'm routing everything through these buses I created at the beginning, and then also getting them colored the way I want. And while that's all important, I don't like to spend a ton of time on it, and folders allow me to do that really, really easily. So let me show you, let's do it on these gang vocals. So here we go. We've got 6 tracks of gang vocals. I know those are going to go to my background vocal bus. So here's what I do. I select them. I drag them up to the bus. See right there? Doink. Now, a couple of things just happened. First of all, they got changed to purple, which is the color of background vocals. Fight me on that. The next thing that happens is obviously they're inside this folder, so I can open and close the folder. But the next thing that's even cooler is the tracks have now all been automatically routed to my background vocal bus. So if I come out here and I select my background vocal bus and hit play, they're going to all be there. They're very loud, so I'm going to have to turn those down. That kind of scared me a little bit. So let me just recap what just happened. I was able to color all 8 tracks instantly, was able to route all 8 tracks to my background vocal bus, and I was able to get them in the spot physically in the session that I want them, which is down towards the bottom. And I do the same thing for, these are my bass tracks, so they're going to go up to my bass bus right here. Boom, same thing just happened. They're colored red, and now they are routed to my bass bus. It's super, super fun. One quick thing, if you don't know how to do that, let me just add a new folder track so you can do it on your own session. So you add a folder track. Let's say there was another group of, this is inside that folder. Let's say there's another group of tracks in here like orchestra tracks, and we want to have them on their own bus. So we would call that orchestra. We decide what color that should be, and of course all orchestras are pink. And then we would come in here and we would say, hold on, where do I say it? I forget. We would add a bus channel for this folder. So we would come here and we would add a bus channel, and boom, it automatically creates a bus called orchestra. We can find it over in our session, probably to the far right. Where are you, orchestra? Orchestra. There you are, right here. It created this kind of folder/bus hybrid track, named it orchestra because that was the name of this, and now anything I drag into this folder will be a part of that orchestra bus, will be routed to that orchestra bus, and will be colored pink. You gotta love it, but let's get rid of that because we don't need none of that today. I also have this reference folder track. That one's kind of interesting to me. One thing this client did, which is wonderful because I asked him to do it and he was a sweet guy for doing it, is I said, hey, send me a rough mix that you've done of your song so that I can just have that as kind of a reference to check on. So I'm going to import his rough mix into this, into this session. Let's just go here, boink-a-donk-a-donk-a-donk-a-donk, doodle-a-doodle-a-doo, right there. Drag it in. And I'm going to drag, okay, it's converting it because it's an MP3. I'm going to drag that into my reference. It's not letting me do anything because it's importing. Stand by. And I'm back. Okay, so now I've got this mix track here. Well, I don't want that going out my main mix bus, right? Because it's going to go through, let's say, the bus compressor that I have there. So what I'm going to do is route it to a different channel on my board in front of me so that I can just have that muted, and then when I want to flip over, I can just mute my mix coming down a different channel on my board and listen to that. But instead of manually routing it, I've created a reference folder. Boink. Now that reference folder, if we click on it and look, we will see it is routed to channels 29 and 30, which is different from my main mix, which is routed to channels 1 and 2. See? So now, if I hit play and I have just channels 29 and 30 of the stereo channels on my board selected, we're going to hear. So that's his mix, and then I can flip over and listen to my mix. So I can quickly go back and forth and compare. Not just like, the only reason I do that, just for the record, is so, I'm not sure where this guitar needs to go. Is it a really prominent guitar, or is it more of a background thing? What was his intention? And I can go check his mix and say, I see, okay. It's a very upfront kind of guitar. And that just helps me kind of understand what his intentions were with the song. I'm not trying to match his mix as much as I am just trying to use it as just a reference for some of his intentions if it's not clear from the tracks themselves. All right, so that is it for my Studio One template as of today, in the middle of October 2019. I will put a download link in the comments below, or in the section below, the description below, so you can download this actual session file and use it as your template, because I made a few changes today. So what I'm going to do real quick is to save as template, and I'm going to replace an existing template, which allows me to pick my Mix Plus Folders song template and replace that. Now, I got to show you this because I would be remiss if I didn't. What I just did was save this entire song as the template, and that's not actually what I want. So if I create a new song called Boogity Boogity, and I use the Mix Plus Folders template and open it up, what do I get? You guessed it. I get all this junk that I don't want. So I'm going to clean this up and then resave it as my template. So that means I'm going to delete all these folders. We're not going to solo that. We're going to delete these tracks. We're going to delete, I didn't delete those folders, sorry, I spoke wrong. I was deleting all the audio tracks. Delete those. I'm going to delete all of these. Okay, now that's all deleted. I'm going to close that. I'm basically just wanting it to look like I want it to look. That orchestra track didn't get deleted. That's the one thing, if you delete a folder, it doesn't delete the bus underneath it, so just keep that in mind. Get these organized how I want them. The level meter's there. Okay, everything is where I want it. Good, good, good. One thing is this session now has a bunch of audio files attached to it, so I'm going to remove unused files. Come on. Come on. There we go. So yes, we're going to remove those from this session. We're going to save it. Now we've got a template that we can use as our starting template. And I'm going to move this maybe down here. And let's close. I'll leave that open. So this is how it's going to look next time I open up this template, which is kind of fun. So we're going to go save as template, same thing as before, replace existing template. We're going to replace Mix Plus Folders again. Boink. Now, next time we go to create a new song called Boo, as in Boogity Boogie. Shoot, I forgot to select the right one. Call this Boo 2. We can select the Mix Plus folder, open it up, and boom, it looks like we just left that one, which the changes I made from the beginning of this video is now it has this level meter over here. We've added these EQs here, and I've got rid of a few like outputs that were showing that I really didn't need to be showing. Super, super fun. Love it. Hope this was helpful for you. Again, I'll have this exact session file, maybe not called Boo, but I'll have a session file available for download. You don't have to do anything but download it below here in the description. Enjoy, have fun, and thanks for watching. See ya.